Good morning, everybody. How are you? I want to just make this podcast on a concept that I think can be really useful, especially as we're moving through this idea of expanding. And I think a lot of the time, expanding, as I've maybe mentioned here before, tend to associate it with the accumulation of things. But I, I like to look on expansion as just the ability to hold more tension, to hold more friction, to stand your ground a little bit more firmly. Think of it a little bit, especially with all this good weather. This idea of, you're standing in the water and the water is pushing against you. And your expansion is the ability to stand there knee deep in the water and not get knocked over. And so you can begin to kind of notice this in just many different aspects of your life. Your expansion is your ability to hold and know when the reaction you're experiencing is deep upset from a person, or your expansion is the ability to engage in a conflict to protect yourself, or so on and so forth, to be able to stand up for yourself. In those moments, that's the expansion to not crumble, to not be knocked over by the water. And I think a very useful way to kind of force yourself towards expansion is to adopt a policy of always telling the truth. Now, this is sort of something that I first encountered with the work of Sam Harris. Sam Harris is a neuroscientist and a meditation teacher. He has a great meditation app called Waking Up, which I think a few of you probably know or have spoken about before. And I remember hearing about this from Sam Harris. He wrote a book all about telling the truth. I think must be nearly 15 years old at this stage. And he had taken a vow of telling the truth, of no little white lies, no dishonesty. And what he discovered from this is that it required him to always be in integrity. Now, to be in integrity really just means that you live your word. You're not trying to manipulate, you're not trying to people please, because people pleasing is a form of manipulation, right? You're trying to change someone's opinion of you, change their feelings towards you, manipulate how they see you by pleasing them when it's not genuinely coming from you. It's really just a strategy, a social strategy. So so by deciding to always speak the truth, it it kind of leaves you in a vulnerable position. So and the vulnerable position is that so much of our society, um, especially kind of when I talk about like the kind of the old game in society, the old game in society, the very tribal game that we've been playing up until recently. It depended upon lies. It depended upon keeping face, Oh, I can't come to this thing because I'm sick. I can't come to this thing because the car broke down. Rather than just honestly admitting, hey, I can't come to this thing because I'm socially overwhelmed right now. And I notice this with younger generations in particular, their honesty in regard to how they work, how they feel, what they're able to do, what they're not able to do. When they reach capacity, they say it. When I think of older generations, that they don't have that ability. So this is something that's it is slowly being seeded into us humans anyway. We are just becoming more honest. We're having the courage to be more honest. And so moving in this direction, taking this vow of honesty, so to speak, um, accelerates a process that evolution is already creating, right? And how this might play out in your life, I think is just quite it it's quite empowering. I know myself, there's been a couple of occasions, you can probably remember more than a couple actually, where I forgot to record things. And the temptation is always to sort of say something like, "Oh, there was the Wi-Fi dropped," or to say like, "Oh, I don't know. It's sort of something's happened here." But on in the moments where I have just forgotten, and it has been human error, it's very liberating for me to say, "Hey, I'm sorry. I actually just forgot to press the big red button that is very hard to avoid." And doing this, um, it has the effect of kind of dis disengaging this need that many of us have, especially if we're in some sort of position of leadership, um, to be right all the time, to be perfect all the time. You'll notice that in a relationship, and I think this is perhaps more of a male than a female thing, but I could be wrong here. But males were often we're often raised to believe that the most important thing we can ever be is right. And you can never be seen to be wrong, right? You can understand where so much of the difficulties in the modern world come from when all men are being raised to always be right and to argue that they're right, even if they know that they're wrong. But having this sort of um, ability to just go, "Oh yeah, I'm wrong and I made a mistake," rather than lie about it, rather than try and defend it, it is so empowering because you get to just live life imperfectly. And there's something very liberating about moving through life imperfectly. You can't make it somewhere, and rather than make up a lie, you just say, "Hey, I completely forgot. I'm sorry." You're supposed to do something and you didn't do it, rather than make up an excuse about why you didn't do it. You simply say, "Wow, I just completely, I had a brain fart and it just completely crossed my mind. It completely left my mind." And I think this liberates us from one of the most difficult pieces of human conditioning, that we need to be perfect in order to be loved. Um, so what I would encourage as much as possible is to not lie when you make mistakes, to not lie when you forget things, to become kind of, you could call it radically honest, but it's about just becoming honest as much as possible, and even getting to the stage where you just become honest all the time. I feel now I'm at this point in my life where I just don't lie. And if that means I'm not softening the news, then I feel this is something that, like, I want the people who are in my circle to be able to handle, to be able to handle the truth. And I think it's very, it's just a very empowering thing. You don't get to hide anymore. You have to just stand out there with the truth and receive whatever backlash comes your way. Um, so I think it's a very beautiful thing to do. I think it's a very empowering thing to do. And in terms of all this talk of expansion, there's very few things as expansive as being honest all the time and just holding your integrity. The other thing about it is that it completely minimizes stress. If anything I've learned about, I used to lie a lot when I was younger, is that it just creates so much stress, because holding a lie creates all this sort of energetic incoherence inside the body. And it also creates guilt. And once you're feeling guilt, you will be met by punishment. All right. Because one of the things that I always talk about here is how your state determines reality. So when you fuck up and you're honest and you say, I fucked up, I'm sorry, there isn't a sense of guilt. So the punishment doesn't arrive. It's a neutral transaction. When you do something bad, you screw up and you lie about it, guilt, you generate guilt inside your body. And that guilt in turn creates a balancing force in the universe, which means punishment for you. So, as a way of avoiding punishment, and also as a way of stepping out of comfort, um, I think it can be really, really useful to attempt to be 100% honest all the time. Okay, I'd love to know your thoughts on that and how it's shown up in your life. But for me, I'm finding a lot of clarity and a lot of simplicity and a lot of authenticity in just being honest all the time. All right, loads of love, guys. Talk soon. Bye bye.